Hi, Christy here. I'm in my Akashic records, and today I want to explore love versus fear. You've probably heard many times that there are two forms of energy, that you can either be in love or you can be in fear. A little bit black and white, but you get the idea that there's two poles. You either are aligned with what is expansive or you are contracting, basically. And in the ancient healing art of Shin Jyutsu, which I practice, the different attitudes, worry, fear, anger, sadness, and trying to, which are all part of the system, if you will, all are believed to originate from fear. Of course, fear is obviously fear, but all the other ones are a type of fear. And so again, that sort of reinforces the idea that the things that cause disharmony are things related to fear. So I thought I would explore today in the records, and I've not done this before, so we're going to have to see what happens, how we can build our resilience around returning to love, bouncing back out of the fear zone into what is more loving, more harmonious, more expansive. So I'll start with the question of, like, what are sort of the pathways or strategies to get there. And I jotted down, thoughts, feelings, actions. I'm going to ask about all of those in the records and see what happens. And I'm going to start with feelings because that's what I'm sort of being pointed to at this point. So, when we feel something that's love or fear, we can feel sort of some tension when it's fear-based. We can feel some conflict. We can feel some, for lack of a better word, some kind of angst. So something feels off, something feels difficult, something feels sticky. It may even feel like, ooh, get me out of here. I don't like how this feels. This feels very uncomfortable. Versus when we're in love, we're usually pretty relaxed. There's expansion, there's alignment, there's a sense of ease. They're really bringing up this idea of like, it feels easy. It does not feel like a struggle. And so clearly our feelings are indicative of where we're at. Like when I sat down to do this video, I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to talk about today. And there was that little bit of like tightness, a little bit of tension, like, oh, I don't know, which is, what is that? That's fear. Like, oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to know what to say. Thank goodness for the records, because they will always come to my aid and give me things to say. Anyway, so the feelings are the first sort of indicator. And when we start noticing those, we can start soothing ourselves around the thoughts. I've said this before, probably an exhaustingly frequent number of times. We're always feeling our thinking. So what's behind the feeling? There's some sort of thinking going on. Like my thing this morning of like, what am I going to talk about is a thought. It's a thought of like, oh dear, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an expert. I'm not good at video, whatever. Like there's some backstory there. But the thought is, oh no, like I'm lost. I'm confused. I'm not qualified or something. Like there's some thing that says, ooh, there's a problem here. And is that true? We can always challenge our thoughts and go, all right, so I don't know what I'm going to say, but that doesn't mean I'm unqualified, incompetent, whatever. It just means there's a moment here where I don't know yet what's going to appear, what's going to show up, how I'm going to bring myself forward. So those thoughts are always in there. Like we can't really control our thoughts. We can't really control our feelings. But we can redirect our thoughts. We can, throw some of the things in the spam folder that don't really apply, and we can embrace the things that do. Like there's always some way that I can show up. There's always some way that you can, give a speech or, take your exam or have that hard conversation with a friend. Like there's going to be something that you can do. And so if we can reassure ourselves, I've got this, or at least if I don't have this, I'm going to be kind to myself. So much of life to me is like, have we been able to self-soothe? That to me is a lot about the resilience. That's falling down and getting back up and being on our own side as best we can. Because so much of what I see in the Akashic records for people when I'm doing readings is people being hard on themselves. So can we not be hard on ourselves? Or if we notice ourselves being hard on ourselves, say, whoop, just noticed I went down that spiral that's not helpful for me. Not being hard on ourselves for it, but just saying, okay, yeah, that's one of my well-worn tracks that I tend to go down. And so then the other way to build resilience of this love versus fear dichotomy is to look at our actions. What are we doing that helps us become more resilient in terms of what actions we're taking? I was reading something not too long ago about how if we avoid something enough, that actually creates more angst about it. So if you have some small fear about speaking in public and you like, oh dear, I can't even go there, the more you sort of reinforce that, the more true it becomes and the more of an obstacle it becomes until you may get to the point where you're like, I really can't do this, versus saying, well, what if I try a small group? What if I, present to a group of 5 people, not 500 or 5,000, but what if I start with something that feels more manageable? One, because it sends a message that you can do this. This is a lot about what resilience is about. What they're showing me here is this idea of like, we largely create our reality with what we choose to do or what we choose to avoid. So this thing of like, let's continue to do the things that feel maybe slightly like we're stretching, not like we're doing something completely terrifying, but something that says, yeah, you know what? I can do things that are a little challenging for me. And it's okay that I'll, somehow I'll survive. It may not be the best thing, but it also will be fine. I recently gave a presentation about my Inspire Video Challenge to a community foundation here locally. It was on Zoom. I spent quite a lot of time preparing the presentation, and I was kind of nervous because I haven't given a lot of presentations. But I just kind of said, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to see what happens. And it was fine. If I had avoided it, like, oh, I can't go, I can't do it, that would have like reinforced, oh, you can't do this. Of course I can do this. I can do so much more than my fear-based mind wants me to believe. And that's the other thing that's being brought up in the records is, let's bear in mind that fear has served us in a lot of ways. It's helped us stay safe over millennia. Like getting chased by the saber-toothed tiger, fear is your friend, get away, or defend yourself or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I love you, saber-toothed tiger, feel free to eat me. No, so if we can not get hard on ourselves for like, oh, you're not very evolved because you're fear-based. It's like, all right, can we bring in some balance around fear sometimes being useful and constructive and not always a weakness? It's tempting to say, oh, I'm supposed to be above all that. I'm supposed to be evolved beyond that. But that's just not realistic. We're going to have these ebbs and flows where, yeah, I'm spending a lot more time in love these days. And oops, I slipped into fear. All right, let's stay out of the judgment. What's judgment? It's fear. It's another way of wanting to have things be different than they are and saying they're not okay and that they shouldn't be the way they are. Well, of course they should be the way they are. This is how they are. I always go back to like energetically, we cannot be someplace we're not supposed to be. So, okay, this is how it's supposed to be until maybe it changes or it doesn't. All right, enough chit chat about that for today, I think. I'd love to hear in the comments below about your feelings, thoughts, actions you take to move yourself from fear to love. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And in the meantime, please go be brilliant.